Can you hear me okay? Because my voice is, yeah, it's coming back very quietly. Okay. So this morning I wanted to just spend a few minutes picking up on something that came up last week around intensity in the practice. And yeah, it got me just curious about it, which is always helpful, always useful. Um, So I think sometimes when we talk about intensity in practice, we're talking about the experience itself. We're talking about the object. Especially intense emotions. So it might be there's the intensity of grief or sadness, and we can feel sort of flooded with that emotion, or something like aversion or anger, which just rises like a volcano or fire or something. So it has a sort of stormy quality to it. And what we're doing in the practice is just doing our best to observe those experiences as they happen. They're already happening. So what we do is just notice moment to moment. We recognize that aversion is happening, sadness is here, whatever it is, and then we're just observing the experiences as best we can with a mind that's aware, has a calm, sort of steady awareness in it. And it's worth recognizing the how the intensity of that experience feels, whether it's experienced as pleasant or unpleasant. Just noticing that. But sometimes the intensity comes from the way of looking. It's not to do with the object, it's to do with the quality of the awareness. Um, we might be putting in a lot of effort, and that can lead to a sort of intensity of feeling. So it's not really about what's being noticed, but it's about the quality of the effort. And we don't really want to do that, because then we're putting in more personal effort. So just be aware of that if it's happening. We want the awareness to be quite natural, have this sort of more impersonal feel to it. But sometimes the intensity is also from a narrowing down, a focusing down. And that could be why it came up last week. Sometimes the intensity comes from just the mind sort of getting hooked onto one object. And last week I was inviting you to use an anchor and place some attention on the contact between the thumbs. But even with an anchor, you're only placing sort of maximum sort of 15–20% of your attention in the case last week of where the thumbs are touching. So there's a lot of extra sort of bandwidth, if you like, in the mind to be quite broad and spacious and be aware of what else is happening. And the last thing that I reflected on around intensity is it can be to do with klesha, can be to do with there's a degree of wanting or not wanting the object to be there. And that can sort of modulate, if you like, the intensity and ramp it up a little bit. So we want to notice if these things are happening, if that over efforting or the different sort of poisons or kleshas in the mind, we want to recognize that that's happening and not get too focused on the intensity of the whatever experience is happening, or attribute intensity to the object when in fact it's the mind. It's the mind that is relating in an intense way, if you like. So when the experience is intense, then we just be with that as best we can. We don't try to change that But when it's the mind that is, if you like, creating that intensity within itself, then we want to recognize that, see what's happening, and recognize that with a more sort of spacious, open quality of awareness. Because sometimes the awareness, if you like, gets sucked into what's happening, and that what's happening is a sort of bit of a whirlwind between the object and that intensity of relating to it. So we want to at that point settle back, just sort of open up the mind again, just maybe really relax in body and mind and see, well, what's happening, what's actually happening here. There's perhaps sensations in the body, perhaps there's a couple of thoughts, or there's different sounds. So in that way, we can open up to what's actually happening rather than something that is being created in the mind. Though initially we want to recognize that that's what's happening. Something is being created in the mind. So sometimes awareness and wisdom might well focus down on something, but that happens quite naturally. There's a process of investigation when what happens is the mind gets really curious about something, and that curiosity feels quite pleasant. It feels that the mind is alive and open. So it may have a degree of intensity, but it also has these other characteristics of feeling just really sort of curious about what's going on. Yeah, so that's I think that's probably all I wanted to say. Just watch out, yeah, when that's happening in the mind. Is it the object that's intense and full in itself, or is it the way that we're relating to what's happening? And can that relationship be one of more sort of spaciousness and open awareness? Okay, if you'd like to set yourselves up to sit.